Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to our reading of King Solomon's Mines. We're going to start out right away with chapter 4. In chapter 3, basically, they were facing imminent death if they didn't find water. So that's where we left off. I woke up at 4 in the morning, tortured by thirst. I could sleep no more. I had been dreaming that I was sitting in a cool stream with green banks. I awoke to find myself in that dry wilderness. My lips and eyelids were stuck together, and I had to rub them open. Sounds painful. Soon the others awoke, and we began to discuss the situation. Not a drop of water was left. Our bottles were as dry as bones. If we don't find water, we shall die, Sir Henry said. Jose Silvestre's map shows water near here, I said, but where? No one had much hope of finding the pool marked in the old map. When it began to get light, Ventvogel rose and walked around the base of the hill with his eyes on the ground. Soon he stopped and pointed to the ground. What is it? We asked. We all ran over to where he was standing. Fresh tracks of antelope, he said. They never go too far from water. This discovery gave us some hope and renewed our energy. Ventvogel put his nose in the air and sniffed. I smell water, he said. We were happy then, knowing there must be water nearby. At that moment the sun came up, a sight so beautiful that for a moment we forgot how thirsty we were. There, less than 40 miles away, were the White Twins, the beginning of the Solomon Mountains. Each peak of the Twins was 15,000 feet high. Hold on, this is Fresh Tracks of Antelope. This is Ventvogel, I believe. Ventvogel. Alright. Whatever it is. They were connected by a long cliff, as if they were the pillars of a gigantic gateway. There was something solemn and overpowering about those huge mountains, which were certainly extinct volcanoes. The morning light gleamed from their snow-covered tops, while white mists gathered around their lower parts. But soon our thirst became overpowering. It did no good for Ventvogel to smell water if we couldn't find it. We walked all the way around the hill, but found no sign of a spring or a stream or a pool. You're a fool, I said angrily to Ventvogel. There is no water. I smell it, he said. It is close. It's in the clouds, I said. Maybe in 2 months it will rain and wash our dead bones. Maybe it's on top of the hill, Sir Henry suggested. Impossible, Captain Good said. Whoever heard of water found on top of a hill? We might as well go up and look, I said. Umwelp led us up the sandy slope. And the caption for this is, our thirst became overpowering. You can see how wasted away they look. Alright. Here it is, he cried when he reached the top. Who's he? Umbopa. Here it is, he cried when he reached the top. We ran to him. There in a hollow at the very top of the mound was a pool of water. We didn't care that it was black and nasty looking. Ew. In a second we were all lying on our stomachs and sucking up the water as if it were the nectar of the gods. We drank and drank. Then we tore off our clothes and sat in the pool, soaking up the moisture. We rose, refreshed, and ate some of our dried meat. Then we settled down in the shade and slept until noon. We rested near the water all day. We thanked the ghost of Jose Silvestre who had drawn the map. We figured the water must come from some deep spring. We drank as much as we could and filled our water bottles before we started on our way. That night we covered 20 miles and slept in the shade of some ant heaps. The mountains seemed to tower above us. The next day we reached the lower slope of one of the White Twins. Our water was gone again. There were no streams coming down the mountains, so we would have to wait until we reached the snow to ease our thirst. We began our long climb up the lava rock, which made our feet very sore. We were soon exhausted. We stopped to rest. Off to the side, along a flat ridge, We saw an area of green growth. Soil had formed among the stone and birds had dropped seeds. But what good did it do us? We couldn't eat grass. Still, Mbopa wandered over to have a look at this green patch. A few minutes later, he returned, dancing and shouting like a maniac. We hoped he had found water. What is it, Mbopa? I shouted. Food, he replied. Food and water. He waved something green in his hand. It was a melon. He had found a patch of wild melons. We ran to the melon patch and began to eat. They weren't very tasty, but we were glad for the food and the moisture they contained. We were still hungry, but our luck held. I fired 2 shots. Alright, I'm going to try this next page. It's going to be a challenge. I'm going to try to sound more animated. I don't know how to read, I guess, but we'll see how it goes. I feel like this is how I would read it, but I'll try something different. That moment, a flock of large birds was flying over. I grabbed one of the Winchesters and fired 2 shots into the midst of them. I was lucky to hit one. It weighed about 20 pounds. We built a fire of melon stalks and roasted him over it. We felt much better when we finished our meal. That night we again moved on, carrying as many melons as we could. The air became cooler and cooler as we moved higher. The mountainside grew steeper. We could only move at about a mile an hour. That night we ate our last scrap of dried meat. We knew we would have water as soon as we reached the snow line, but now we began to worry about food. Except for the birds, we had seen no living thing on the mountain. Now the nights were cold. We struggled up the mountain without food, began to feel faint and weak. We sucked on snow to satisfy our thirst, but had nothing at all to eat. At night we wrapped ourselves in our blankets. The cold turned bitter. This is apparently when he grabbed the Winchesters and took a shot. It's called I Fired 2 Shots. Or the caption, rather. Alright. Let's see what we got left. Ooh, we only got a page and a half of reading left. Now we were walking through deep snow. Night was coming on, and cold wind made us all shiver. According to the map, we must be near that cave, Good said. Yes, I said, if there is a cave. We will find it soon, Sir Henry said. If we don't, we're all dead men, I answered. We continued on in silence. The Mbopa, who was in the lead, said, Look. He pointed to a hole in the snow just ahead. We hurried on. It was a cave, just as Jose Silvestre had described it. We crawled inside this small cave just as the sun went down. We huddled together, wrapped in our blankets, and tried to sleep, but the cold kept us awake. We were worn out from the lack of food and from the heat of the desert. Now the cold seemed about to kill us. Hour after hour we sat there shivering. Not long before dawn, I heard Vinvagel's teeth chattering away like mad. Then he gave a deep sigh and fell silent. I thought he had fallen asleep. It says walking through deep snow. This is them approaching the cave or whatever. Or getting ready to go towards the cave. They're getting ready to go towards the cave. Alright. Finally the sun came up and peeped into our cave. We began to stir, all of us but Venvogel. I shook him, but he wouldn't wake up. He was stone dead and frozen stiff. Suddenly I heard a shout of fear from Captain Good. We all turned. The sun was coming straight into the cave now. There at the end, about 20 feet away from us. There was another dead man. There was another dead man. There was another dead man. All right. So that's it for chapter 4. So they escaped the desert, they found some water, then they escaped to the mountains, got some snow. They're starting to run out of food, and this dude freezes to death. And when the rest of them wake up, they realize there's another dead man in there. So the next chapter is Solomon's Road. It's chapter 5. And yeah, thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time.